no start. Got a check engine light on and a number 12 on the gauge. Alright, we got a 2007 Yamaha Grizzly here, 700 EFI. It is not running, no start. So what happened was I was using it and it was running fine, and I shut it off, parked it, went back to go start it again, and it wouldn't start. Just crank, 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 crank. Waited a little bit, tried again, crank, 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 and then finally it fired, and then fired up, and I drove it on the trailer. Then when I got it back to unload it off the trailer, it wouldn't start. Now I have the number 12 on the check engine code, and it's nothing. So I didn't realize that it said number 12 on there initially before I started diagnosing what was wrong with it. I never even looked at that. But I thought, well, it must be either fuel or spark. That's usually what it is. I knew it had compression. I was just using it. So first thing I started looking into was the spark. I knew the ignition key was working, on-off switch was working. So I just pulled the plug out, checked for spark, and it had no spark. Next thing I did was check the coil. The coil tested out okay with the resistances out of the service manual. So the next thing to do after that was I checked the signal coming to the coil, which was the ignition sensor or the crankcase sensor. Or not the crankcase sensor, sorry, the crankshaft position sensor. So I put a multimeter on that, and it wasn't reading properly. So we can take a look at that right now and see what it says and compare that to what the manufacturer says it's supposed to be, and that's going to be what we're going to go after. We're going to try that first to figure out if that makes this puppy run. So then we go into our crankshaft position sensor here, and as you can see we go to a GY and a B wire, and we're supposed to have resistances around here, and I had no resistance. So I have a open sensor or short sensor or something, but it's not shorted because it's not shorted out. So I can show you what we have here, and the easiest spot to check that is you pull this right side panel off. Now here is the wire coming from the stator and ignition, and then these two wires, the gray and the black, I believe it is here. These are the wires we're going to check. So the manual says we're supposed to have 459 to 561 ohms of resistance. So I got my very trusty, cheapo Craftsman digital multimeter here. We're going to put on ohms, and we're going to go to 2000 because the next setting is 200, so that's going to be too low. So coming from the stator, test each of these. And I'm getting nothing. Basically saying it's open, there's no connection there. It's not shorted together, because it would beep if it was. We don't have that, so that leads me to believe that that sensor is bad, and that is what is wrong. So that's what we're going to be going after, and we're going to take you through that. So the next step is to pull this side of the engine apart, because that's where your stator is located. Alright, I got her up on the lift here, so now I'm just going to start pulling some stuff off, and I will just put you on fast forward for that, and once we get to some good stuff I'll bring you on back. Alright, for all those screws, there's a 4mm and a 10mm nut. Alright, we're starting to get closer here. So this here is the cover that's going to come off. This is the wires that I was testing. They come out right here, and then the stator is mounted right in there. So we have to drain the oil, we have to drain the coolant, and then we can start pulling this apart. So that's what I'm going to get into next. I'm going to start with the oil, I think. Using a 17mm here. It looks nice and clean. That feels good. Alright, now we're going to drain the coolant. I'm going to use an 8mm here. I have the drain plug out, but you can see there's none coming out yet because I have to remove the cap from the radiator because it's currently basically vapor locked. Whoa! Alright, now most of the coolant is out, so we're going to start pulling the side cover off. Alright, now I need to go unhook these wires on the other side. One's connected to the voltage regulator, and then the other one, the white plug I was showing earlier. Alright, here's the wire that we were looking at earlier. And then here is the plug that connects to the voltage regulator. These 3 white wires. That's how you check your stator. See if it's shorted out. Alright, so we've got the stator on the bench here. Here's the 2 wires coming from the pickup. And test it again. Got the ohm meter set to 2000 ohms. One on one side here, one on the other, and I'm still getting nothing. So the stator is definitely no good. This part is burnt out. So we're going to get this and this pulled out of here. And I've got a new aftermarket one here to throw in its place. I'm going to give that a try. And on this one, when I test it, we are getting 551 ohms, which is within the spec of 459 to 561. So we're going to get that switched out now, and then we'll clean up the gasket surfaces and put this back together. clean it up in here a little bit before I put that back in. Put some Loctite on these so they don't come loose. It's the last thing you want. Alright, we're going to put some Ultra Black. This is good stuff for engine oil resistance. Around right here where this grommet goes through. Okay, that side should be ready to go. We've got gasket to throw on here, like so. Now we need to get the engine side cleaned up so we can get that back on. Alright, now we have everything pretty well cleaned up. So we're going to throw some RTV on the engine case here, put the gasket on, and work on getting this thing put back together. Alright, we got the side case here all RTV'd up. So we're going to try to slide this back together. There we go. Now we have to put all these case bolts back in, tighten them up to spec, and be good. Obviously fill our fluids. have to feed this back across the engine to the other side, plug it into the voltage regulator and the plug for the crankcase pickup. Right now we need to reinstall the oil plug and fill the coolant and the oil back up. And we can try to test this thing to see if this works. Alright, we got all the fluids back in. I got oil in it and coolant in it. I don't see any leaks, so I am going to try to fire it up, see if it makes a spark. That's a good sign. Now I'm going to check the oil again here. Oil level's good. I'm going to throw some parts back on this thing and bring it outside so I can run it a little more. Alright, we got it all back together now. Time to bring it outside. Alright everyone, well here it is, all done. Got it running. Ready to go.